In this video, I'm going to share with you a quick exercise that you can do with your worship team at the next rehearsal that you have to improve the musicianship of your team coming up. Hey, Spencer here from leadingworshipwell.com. This is the place where we talk about how to lead yourself well, lead your church well, and lead worship well. So if you're interested in that, click subscribe down below. But today we're going to be talking about something that you can do at your worship team rehearsal. And before we get into that, though, I just want to say, if you need help with your worship team rehearsal, I've got something for you down in the description below. It's a link to a free PDF I put together called the Worship Team Rehearsal Blueprint that is going to teach you how to have the best worship rehearsal of your entire life. It's going to teach you how to lead your team well, not just musically, which we're going to talk about in this video, but also relationally and spiritually, which of course is even more important for your team. So it's a complete plan for a worship rehearsal. You can just plug and play right into your worship ministry. Check that out in the description below. But in this video, I just want to teach you a quick exercise that you can do at your next worship rehearsal. It'll take like 10, 15 minutes maybe, but I think it really improves the musicianship of your team. And so let's just get into it. I'm not sure how long this video is going to be today because it's a simple exercise. So I just want to walk you through the process. So ultimately, the goal of this exercise at our worship team rehearsal is to get our team to think more musically when we're playing our songs. We want them to think like arrangers or producers. That's what this exercise is designed to do. So here is how the exercise goes. I want you to pick a song that your team either knows really well but haven't listened to in a while. Like, you know, those songs where you've played them for the past 5 years, but you just know how they go now, so you've never listened to the original recording again. I think this exercise is good to use one of those songs. Or pick a new song that you're going to introduce to your church. That way, your team can be introduced to it before they actually play it at the next worship rehearsal, and they can kind of hear their parts. So get that song in your mind. If you have a new song you want to introduce, think about that song. If you don't have that, pick a song that your team knows really well that you've been doing for a while, but they probably haven't listened to the original recording. So take that song, and I want you to listen through it with your worship team. You're going to put on your listening ears, and we're going to talk about what that means here in a second, but we're just going to listen to it at our next worship rehearsal. And as they're listening to it, before you actually click play, let them know this. Say, I want you to listen for your specific instrument in the song. I want you to just zero in on that, and I want you to think about this. When does it come in? When does it cut out? And how does what they're playing interact with the other instruments and vocalists in the song? That's what I want you to listen for. I want you to zero in on your instrument, whatever your instrument is, and I just want you to listen for that part in the song. And then you play the song and allow them to listen. Tell them they can take notes. And the first time you do this, they're probably just going to be learning the process, and they aren't going to be thinking about it too much or the way that they should, because it's hard to switch off that mindset of, okay, I'm just listening to a song, to now I'm actually listening to my specific parts. But lead them in that. Tell them, I want you to listen. Where do you come in? Where do you come out? How does what you're doing interact with the other instruments in the song? Maybe, is there anything special that stands out to you? And then, after the song is over, ask your team, what stood out to you? Simple question. What stood out to you in the arrangement of that song? And hopefully they're going to be like, well, I realized that the guitar didn't come in until the second verse. And when it came in, it was like playing this high, jangly part up here. And then whenever we got to the final chorus, it switched to a lower part or something like that. Like, that's what we want them to be hearing, because we want them to start thinking like arrangers or composers or producers or whatever title you want to use. And the reason that this is powerful is because it gets your team to step back from them just playing their part to understanding how their part plays in with the entire band. And so if your team has ever struggled with, like, you have those people on your team who just play nonstop, or you ask them to sing with you and then they just sing nonstop and they're like, verse 1, I better be singing because I'm here to sing today. But that's not actually their job. Like, if you listen to any recording of any modern worship song, very rarely will you hear all of the vocalists in on verse 1. And so you can tell people that, and you should tell people that, but I think it helps them to actually hear it for themselves. Same thing with guitar or like drumming. Like, the drums don't play through the entire song in a lot of songs, or they'll back off like a lot. But oftentimes, especially inexperienced drummers are just like doom doom ka doom 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 ka, and playing like the same beat over and over again. Maybe they add a couple fills in there, but that's not the musical way to play drums, right? That's just, you're keeping a beat at that point. But we want them to be musicians, and we want them to think as producers, as arrangers, so that they understand how their part functions within the bigger picture of the song. So that's just a quick exercise that you can do. Just to recap once again, pick a song that your team knows really well, or a new song that you want to introduce, and then you're going to listen to it at your worship rehearsal with them. But before you do that, let them know, I want you to listen for this. I want you to listen for your specific part. Where do you come in? Where do you cut out? What are you playing? And how does that interact with the other instruments in the song? And then at the end of that, just ask, what stood out to you? What did you notice about your instrumental part in that song? And just see what happens. Try that at your next worship rehearsal. And I think it'll be a good change in pace. I would have this, when I do this with my team from time to time, it like replaces the devotional time. And not that like we want to get rid of the spiritual time. I think that's like usually what we do, but I think there's time to, or some flexibility to use that devotional time for like some musical training every once in a while. So try that out. And if you need, once again, if you need a schedule, if you need a plan for your worship rehearsal, check out the link in the description below to the free PDF I put together called The Worship Rehearsal Blueprint, where I lead you through the whole process from beginning to end of how to run the perfect worship rehearsal. So check that out. If you do this exercise, come back to this video and let me know how it goes. I want to hear how it worked for you and your team. I feel like it's been really fruitful for me and my teams over the years, so I wanted to share it with you. Other than that, thanks so much for joining me. Until I see you in the next video, keep leading worship well.